My family skipped my son's birthday 4 years in a row. 4 days later, my mom texted, $3,400 for the cabin weekend. Everyone's chipping in. I sent $2 with a note. Wrong guest list. Then I locked every shared card, blocked the vacation fund, and flagged the charges. They reported fraud. The bank called me. I smiled and replied, I honestly didn't expect to snap the way I did. Not after everything they'd already put me through. I always assumed I'd be the bigger person. Keep the peace. Be the son who understands. But the thing about letting someone stomp on your dignity long enough is, eventually, you get tired of wiping your face and pretending it's just dirt. My son turned 7 this year. 7. You'd think after missing his birthday 3 times already, they'd at least remember this one. Or show up. Or send a card. Nothing. Again. 4th year in a row. No call. Not even a text. My wife baked him a cake and he decorated it himself. Red frosting, superhero candles, the whole thing. He sat at the table after everyone left, staring at the untouched chair I had saved for my parents, and asked if Nana got stuck in traffic again. We live 15 minutes from them. I told myself not to bring it up. Not this year. What was the point? But I was seething inside. I scrolled back through years of messages and saw the same pattern. Silence during anything that mattered to me or my kid, and sudden appearances when it was about them. It was like we were supporting cast members in a movie they were starring in. 4 days later, my phone buzzed while I was getting ready for work. A text from my mom. $3,400 for the cabin weekend. Everyone's chipping in. That was it. No hi. No hey, how's the kid? No sorry we missed the birthday again. Just an invoice wrapped in entitlement. I stood in the kitchen staring at the message. My wife was putting cereal on the table and asked what was wrong. I handed her the phone. She read it. Didn't say anything. Just handed it back and kept pouring milk. That's when it hit me. I've been financing their nonsense out of habit. I've been the one funding these family trips, even though they stopped treating me like family a long time ago. The joint vacation fund account we set up years ago? I was the only one still contributing. They'd stopped adding money after the 2nd year, and just expected me to cover the rest like it was my duty. I opened the banking app, transferred $2 into the account, and added a note. Wrong guest list. Then I locked every shared card tied to my name. Froze the vacation fund. Went into the transactions and flagged every pending charge I saw for that weekend, an Airbnb in Lake Tahoe, a luxury SUV rental, 2 spa holds, and some restaurant deposit. Then I walked out the door like it was any other Thursday. By noon, the bank called. The guy on the phone asked about the flagged charges. I smiled, leaned back in my chair, and said, Yeah, those aren't fraudulent in the criminal sense. Just some unauthorized spending by relatives using an account they have no legal claim to. You'll see I'm the sole contributor for the past 18 months. He put me on hold for a second, then came back and confirmed it. The cards would be permanently shut down, all payments reversed unless proven otherwise, and a note added for any future disputes. They wouldn't be able to use a dime. I got a flurry of texts from my mom later that day, first confused, then passive-aggressive, then threatening to handle this differently if I didn't fix it by Friday. I didn't reply. That night, my wife handed me a beer, and we sat on the porch while my son played in the yard with his new Nerf blaster. She didn't say much, just squeezed my hand. I thought that would be the end of it. A message sent, loud and clear. But I underestimated how much they needed to feel like they were in control. Like I still owed them something. They weren't going to let it go. Not a chance. And I wasn't going to let it slide anymore either. They showed up 2 days later. No warning. No call. I looked out the window and saw their Lexus parked half up the curb in front of our house like it was still theirs. My wife was upstairs getting our son dressed, and I was just finishing up dishes from breakfast when I heard the doorbell. I opened it, and saw both of them standing there. My dad in his usual golf shirt, Mom in sunglasses even though it was cloudy. Neither of them looked angry. They looked amused. Like this was some kind of misunderstanding I would clear up if they gave me a chance. My mom asked if we could talk privately. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. She started with a laugh, told me I'd overreacted. Said I should have just told them I didn't want to go to the cabin. I reminded her that no one had invited me. That it was planned behind my back. Again. Her smile faded. That's when my dad stepped in. Said they'd called the bank and were told the charges had been flagged as fraud. That it could get serious if I didn't call them back and undo the claim. Said if I didn't fix it, they might have to go to the police and report me for misuse of shared financial tools. Like I'd somehow stolen from them. I didn't even flinch. Just told them to do what they had to do. That the account was in my name, the cards were mine, and the only fraud going on was the way they treated me like an ATM while pretending my son didn't exist. My mom told me to grow up. My dad muttered something about how this is why my brother always got further in life. Because he didn't burn bridges. They left after 5 minutes. No shouting, no real drama. But I knew it wasn't over. The next morning, my wife called me from the driveway. I was still brushing my teeth. Come outside. I walked out barefoot and saw what they'd done. My son's bike, the one he just got for his birthday, was bent in half on the lawn. One of the windows on our car had a hairline crack across it like someone threw something small but sharp. And someone, probably my dad, had used a marker to write, "Liar," across our mailbox in big, black letters. I took photos of everything. Called the police. Gave them names. I didn't try to guess or speculate. I just said I had reason to believe my parents had done this, and that I wanted it documented. They sent someone over that afternoon. The officer was polite, asked questions, took notes, and before he left, he said something that stuck with me. Family can be the worst when money and pride are involved. I filed a formal report the next day. Not because I thought they'd go to jail. I just wanted it on paper. Wanted them to feel something other than smug superiority for once. 3 days later, they were served with a notice. Vandalism charges. Minor, but official. I didn't press for anything harsh. I just wanted a record. That's when they snapped. They came by the house a week later, not to apologize, not to deny it, but to say that my son wasn't theirs. That if I was going to treat them like strangers, then we were strangers. That they didn't need this kind of disrespect in their lives. That they only recognized my brother's kids as their real grandchildren now. They said it in the kitchen, loud enough that my son, who had come downstairs looking for juice, heard every word. He froze. Looked at me. Then at them. And then just started crying. My wife told them to leave. I didn't have to say anything. I just picked my son up and carried him back upstairs. I could hear her downstairs, telling them not to come back here. Ever. The door slammed. Quiet returned. I sat with him on the bed until he fell asleep. He asked if Nana hated him. I said no. But I wasn't sure anymore. They vanished after that night. Not physically. They were still living in their big white house on Hillcrest with the trimmed hedges and empty guest room, but from our lives. Not a call, not a text, not a knock on the door. For 6 full months, they acted like we didn't exist. At first, it was peaceful. The silence gave us space to heal. My son slowly stopped asking if they'd visit. My wife got her energy back. I focused on work, finished repainting the garage, started jogging again. But even in the quiet, I could feel the freeze. We didn't have grandparents anymore. Not really. Then my brother, Evan, called. It was a Tuesday night late. He didn't sound like himself. I hadn't heard from him since Christmas. We'd texted here and there, mostly jokes or kid pics, but nothing deep. He jumped straight in. They're losing the house. I stood in the kitchen, phone to my ear, staring at the coffee maker like it might answer for me. He said they'd taken out a loan 2 years ago, a big one. Renovations, some credit card debt, probably that 2-week cruise they took while ignoring my son's 6th birthday. Whatever it was, they were behind on payments now, and foreclosure was officially on the table. They called me last night, Evan said. Said they just need a place to stay for a bit. Wanted to know if they could move into our basement. I asked what he told them. He laughed. Told them no. That they should ask you. They said they already planned to. Sure enough, the next evening my phone lit up with a call from my mom. I didn't pick up. 10 minutes later, my dad called. Then a text. We need to talk. It's important. Please call. I waited an hour. Then I called back. This time there was no false sweetness, no passive-aggressive charm. My mom just launched in. We've hit a rough patch financially. We'll likely need to stay somewhere for a couple months. It makes the most sense for us to come to you. You have space. I let her talk. She tried to soften it with a few compliments about our nice neighborhood, and how Kids need stability. Then she slipped in the kicker, that she assumed I understood what it meant to care for family in hard times. When she finally stopped, I said it quietly. No. I won't help you. She didn't speak for a few seconds. Then she asked if I was joking. I reminded her that they hadn't even acknowledged their grandson's birthday. That they'd vandalized our home and called us liars. That they told my son he wasn't really family. I remember everything, I said. And I'm not interested in fixing what you broke. She hung up. Didn't say goodbye. About an hour later, my phone buzzed again. Group text. Both of them. You'll regret this. We're your parents. This is temporary. Family sticks together. I stared at the screen. For the first time, I realized they weren't angry because they were hurt. They were angry because they'd lost control. They never imagined I'd say no. Never imagined they'd fall far enough to need me. The next day, Evan texted me. One line. They moved in with the Andersons. You know them? From church? I did. The Andersons lived in a cramped two-bedroom across town. My parents had made fun of them once for buying discount wine and letting their dogs sleep on the couch. Now they were sleeping in that same living room, bags on the floor, pride cracked wide open. They still haven't spoken to me. Haven't seen their grandson. Haven't come near our house again. But they know where we are. And they know I'm the one who finally said no. A few weeks after they moved in with the Andersons, I heard from them again, but not directly. Evan called me one night and told me they were trying to get the Hillcrest house back. Said they were looking into ways to fight the foreclosure, possibly even trying to leverage family assets to make it look like they still had equity. Don't be surprised if they come knocking again, he warned. They didn't knock. They sent a letter. A printed, signed, notarized letter claiming I owed them money. Not legally, there was no actual debt, but they framed it like it was part of some family agreement. That they'd covered expenses for me during hard times, and were now requesting reimbursement as they navigate unexpected financial hardship. They were serious. My wife opened the envelope, read the letter, and didn't even hand it to me. Just dropped it straight into the trash. I pulled it back out, scanned it, took a photo, and emailed it to my lawyer. Just in case. The thing about being treated like an ATM your whole life is you eventually learn how to freeze the account. And I wasn't just talking about money. I didn't respond to the letter. Didn't call. Didn't text. Then the rumors started. Friends from church, old neighbors, even one of my old high school teachers. They all started reaching out, cautiously, awkwardly. Some asked if everything was okay between me and my parents. One asked if I was being investigated. That last one stopped me cold. Apparently, my parents were going around telling people I had hacked into shared accounts. That I'd manipulated finances. That I'd committed digital fraud. They were planting seeds. Trying to ruin my name so I'd come crawling back to clear it. But it backfired. The bank never backed them up. The paper trail was clean. Everything pointed to me as the sole account holder and contributor. The only reason they ever had access was because I'd invited them, and then removed them, legally. I could have ignored the rumors. Could have taken the high road again. But then they went too far. They showed up at my job. I work at a medium-sized real estate office downtown. Nothing fancy, but it's professional. That afternoon, I came back from lunch and the receptionist told me a couple had stopped by asking to speak to my manager. They claimed I was involved in unauthorized financial activity. They were trying to sabotage my job. I didn't panic. I documented everything. I filed a report through our HR department. I brought in bank statements, screenshots, even the vacation fund logs. It wasn't just about clearing my name. It was about building a case. That same week, I filed a cease and desist letter through a lawyer. Had it sent to the Andersons' address. The next morning, I got a call. It wasn't from my parents. It was from Mr. Anderson. He apologized. Said he didn't know they were still trying to handle things like this. Told me they'd be moving out. They did 3 days later. No one knew where they went. But I had a feeling this wasn't the end. They weren't just losing their status. They were watching it implode. And I wasn't going to help them pick up the pieces. I didn't go looking for revenge. Not at first. I kept waiting for them to stop. To realize they'd crossed the line and quietly disappear back into whatever little world they still had left. But they didn't stop. They escalated. And something in me just flipped. It started with a voicemail. A familiar voice I hadn't heard in months, my mom, rambling about how they were thinking of suing me for emotional damages over the cease and desist letter. Then she mentioned my son again. Said something about how I'd poisoned him against his real family. That was it. I pulled out the old file folder I kept for emergencies. Inside were every receipt, every account statement, and a printed copy of an email chain from 3 years ago. My dad had sent it when we were trying to buy our current home. Back then, he offered to help with the down payment but changed his mind 2 weeks later. In the email, he explained how people like us shouldn't live in neighborhoods above our grade. That line stuck with me. I compiled everything. Digital copies. Physical backups. Then I made 2 moves. First, I contacted a reporter I knew from college. She worked local features now, not the big stories, but the human ones. I told her I had something personal, off the record at first. She listened. I told her the whole story. She was stunned. Said it would take a few days to verify things, but she'd let me know. Second, I reached out to my parents' old church. The one they hadn't attended in years but still used for social leverage. I sent the church board a quiet, respectful message with links to the police report, the vandalism complaint, and a statement explaining why I wanted no further contact. I told them to keep their name out of any future trouble tied to my parents. I wasn't trying to humiliate them. I was trying to strip away the illusion. The image they'd spent years constructing, the successful couple, the generous hosts, the loving grandparents, was a costume. And I was done letting them wear it. The article came out 2 weeks later. The headline was subtle. It didn't name them, just said, "When family becomes a transaction, a son's fight for boundaries." But anyone who knew us knew exactly who it was about. It exploded in our community. Not because it was sensational, but because it was raw. Honest. A quiet kind of storm. They tried to deny it. Said the article was exaggerated. But it didn't matter. The facts were there. The screenshots, the voicemail recordings, the financial records. People started talking. Whispering. Then distancing. Their names stopped getting invited to things. My dad wasn't asked to speak at that local business luncheon. My mom's book club moved their meetings to someone else's house. The echo chamber they used to thrive in went silent. They tried to get ahead of it. My dad posted some long rant on Facebook about how children today have no loyalty. But even his old golf buddies didn't like the post. It got 2 comments. Both from people they barely knew. And then, in the middle of all this, I got a letter from the bank. Turns out the house on Hillcrest had officially been repossessed. They hadn't just moved out. They'd lost it. Completely. No safety net. No fallback. I didn't cheer. I didn't post about it. But I poured myself a drink that night, sat on the porch, and watched my son race his bike up and down the driveway. The same bike they tried to destroy months ago. That was the revenge. Not the article. Not the silence. It was the fact that we were still here. Happy. Whole. And finally free from them. After the article dropped and the fallout rolled in, the silence finally settled in for real. Not the tense kind, not the waiting for the next blow kind. Just quiet. They disappeared. No one knew exactly where they went. Evan said he heard from someone at church that they were couch hopping with old friends, trying to piece things back together. But the invitations were getting fewer. People weren't lining up to house 2 people who'd been publicly called out for emotionally abusing their own son and vandalizing their grandchild's birthday bike. I thought that would be it. But it wasn't. 6 weeks after the article, I got a certified letter in the mail. This time from a lawyer. They were trying to take legal action against me over the Hillcrest house. Said I had knowledge of potential resources, and had refused familial obligation. The words were ridiculous. Desperate. And their lawyer? Some guy with a shaky website and a string of bad Yelp reviews. I didn't panic. I handed the letter to my own attorney, who skimmed it, looked at me and said, "This won't go anywhere. They're out of options." Still, I told Evan. Just so he'd know what they were trying now. That's when he hit me with something I didn't expect. "They asked me to," he said, "to testify against you." I asked him what he said. I told them they were out of their minds. That if they kept coming after you, they'd lose me too. That was the moment it all settled. They'd lost everything. The house, the reputation, their influence. And now they'd lost both their sons, not because we turned on them, but because they built their lives like castles on sand. Cold, hollow, and crumbling the moment someone stopped pretending it was solid. The lawsuit died before it began. Their lawyer dropped it quietly. No judge was ever involved. And we didn't hear from them again. The next holiday came and went. No card. No call. Evan and his family came over though. Our kids tore through the yard, faces sticky with frosting. We grilled hot dogs and laughed about dumb childhood stories. At one point, Evan pulled me aside. "You're the only one I talk to anymore." I nodded. Same. 6 months passed. A year. We were living without them. Not just functionally, but fully. I no longer checked my phone half expecting another blow. My wife smiled more. My son stopped asking about Nana and Grandpa altogether. Then, one Sunday, we were at the farmer's market when I saw them. They looked smaller. Older. Worn down in a way no money could fix. My mom made eye contact with me, for a split second, then looked away. My dad didn't even notice us. He was staring at a cracked tomato like it had personally offended him. They didn't approach. They didn't say a word. They weren't family anymore. Not really. They were people I used to know. We went home. My son helped unload the groceries and told us about a joke he heard at school. My wife kissed me on the cheek and started prepping dinner. And in that ordinary moment I realized. This was the life I'd always wanted. No performance. No guilt. No war. Just peace. And this time, it was mine. Epilogue: The Unexpected Legacy. A little over a year has passed since that day at the farmer's market. Our life has settled into a rhythm I thought was lost. Routine feels good: biking lessons, school plays, weekend hikes, lazy Sunday pancakes. Then last month, I got a letter with no return address stamped with an old family crest, one I haven't seen since I was a kid. Inside was a glossy invitation to a charity gala, hosted by a foundation named for my grandparents. The catch: in honor of a family united by legacy. Posted in 3 weeks, Philadelphia. I stared at that invitation for a long time, memory flooding back. My grandmother's warmth, the way my grandfather used to hold my hand on holiday trips. We weren't rich in money, but in their era, we had status. My first reaction was anger. They'd lost everything, and now this? Trying one last guilt trip? I tossed the invite onto my desk and went for a run. Later, at dusk, I told my wife. Her eyes narrowed as she read it. "Does this foundation even exist anymore?" We did some digging. An archive search pulled up tax filings. Yep, the foundation still existed, loosely tied to a network of old money donors. And suddenly I had a pang of something I hadn't felt since their bankruptcy: curiosity. That night I called Evan. "Is this normal? A family foundation after everything?" He thought for a beat. "Maybe it's them wanting redemption. Or eyes on you, trying to pull you back into the fold." The next day, I emailed to RSVP, tentatively, anonymously. Attendee. No gifts, no support, no speeches. Just presents. The gala night arrived. My son stayed with Evan and his kids. My wife and I stepped into the grandeur: crystal chandeliers, polished floors, and tables seated with the city's upper crust. We didn't know a soul. Then, about halfway through the evening, we saw them. They entered quietly. Smaller, yes, but not broken. Dressed impeccably, holding arms and heads high. My dad squeezed past guests like a man expecting doors to open automatically. My mom's eyes scanned the room until they landed on me. We stood face to face in the marble foyer. For a long moment, it was silence but charged air. Then my dad exhaled. "Thank you for coming," he said, strangely earnest. "This gala, it's my life's work. And I wanted you here." My wife shifted beside me. My mom looked vulnerably at my son, who'd accompanied us at the last minute, hopeful to see his grandparents. Something cracked in me. Not forgiveness, but recognition. This was more than a family feud. It was their attempt to reinvent, maybe atonement, maybe delusion. We spoke for 15 minutes. Polite, respectful. My son asked them about the foundation's charity efforts. It was legit, supporting underprivileged schools. My parents told a story of wanting to leave something behind beyond wealth and drama. But the tension never left. The invitation was as much leverage as redemption. I couldn't shake that. By the end of the night, I told them I'd decided I would support the Foundation's educational program, but only through my own nonprofit, separate and transparent. A silent rebuke and bridge at once. They paused, glanced at each other, then nodded. We parted with cautious civility. I knew it was fragile, a peace built on eyes wide open, not blind trust. Walking out, I realized the story wasn't over. It had just entered a new chapter, one where healing didn't mean forgetting, where legacy could be rebuilt but not co-opted. And as we drove home, my son dozed in the back. I felt something I hadn't felt before, a cautious hope. Because sometimes the most unexpected twist isn't revenge or ruin, it's the quiet choice to hold your ground, extend a hand, and write the next chapter on your own terms.